Have you ever had the experience where you are in a new environment and you spot someone and you're like, yep, that person is going to be my new best friend? That's what happened for me when I first met Kit Volcano at a business conference a few years ago. And then I was equally dazzled when I later met his wife, Rosie. When I asked Kit about his business on that first day, he told me that he and Rosie create magic. And that one of the ways they do that is by taking people to Disneyland, where they, as a collective, manifest miracles on roller coasters. Dear listener, I had some questions, and I'm guessing you do too. You are going to hear the answers to those questions and more on this podcast episode. Because besides being magic and miracle creators, Kit and Rosie are two of the best mindset coaches I have ever met. I have actually had some of my biggest personal growth aha moments when I got a very loving bitch slap from Kit. On this episode, you are going to learn why you have to upgrade your identity before you can lose weight or achieve whatever goal you want. Also, Kit is going to walk you through an exercise teaching you how manifesting works and what most people are doing totally wrong. And you are going to hear the story of how Rosie healed her dad by changing her mindset. And guess what? I'm guessing that some of you are going to get triggered as all hell in this episode. To which Kit would say, "You're welcome." And some of you are going to absolutely love learning from the volcanoes. The fact that Kit and Rosie prompt such a strong reaction in people is what makes them so effective at what they do. And I'll tell you the effect it had on me. Before I met the volcanoes, I had absolutely zero interest to go to Disneyland as an adult. And after hearing about their event, Manifestation Disney, I thought, if I ever do go to Disneyland, I want to go with these guys. And last January, I did. And we did actually manifest some miracles on roller coasters. Here's the story.
Ready to break up with your bullshit? I mean, all those excuses that are keeping you stuck. Because you have one life to live. And if you're not having fun yet, then that's a problem, dude. Welcome to Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit. The podcast where you learn about the habits of kicking ass at life. Whether you want to get ripped, get rich, or just get high on life, this is the place to be. Here's your host, best-selling author and feel-good expert, Una Duncan.
All right. I'm here with the one and only Kit and Rosie Volcano. Guys, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so honored to be here, Una.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. So I first want to give some context to the listener. Can you tell people what it is that you do?
Well, we make miracles.
Mm-hmm.
But we do so much more than that. Rosie's tagline that she actually came up with recently is we help people master their emotions to create a miraculous life. And, because you're really creating your reality through your emotional world. And that's, it's everything. We do everything because we want to feel certain ways. We go after our goals because we want to feel certain ways, but people do it from the reverse way. They do things to feel ways instead of feeling things to motivate them.
And we do 100%. That through transformational coaching programs, through online events, through amazing epic in-person retreats and events, and kind of a combo of all of those things.
And through taking people to Disneyland and creating actual miracles.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm definitely going to ask you guys about that because I think, one of the very few privileged people who's actually had this experience with you. So we're definitely going to talk about Manifestation Disney. But I just want to go back to what you said. Most people are going around it the opposite way. So, I talk about this with health and weight loss all the time. People think, when I get skinny, then I'm going to feel a certain way and it's going to be so awesome and blah, 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 blah. But really, you've got to start practicing that feeling. What you want is that actual feeling. You don't care how much you weigh. You care about the feeling you think you're going to have when you weigh a certain amount. And you have to practice that feeling now. And then, ta-da, when you start practicing that feeling, you're probably actually going to get the body that you think you want. Does that resonate with what you guys are teaching?
You know what? It's actually really crazy, Una, because I just recently made a post about having to shift my identity to adjust to weight loss that had already happened. I noticed recently I had lost weight and my subconscious mind could not handle it. It was like, wait, your identity is fat dad. Your identity is dad bod, is chubby bod. And I was breaking that identity by losing weight. And I was like, something is wrong. I could feel my subconscious. I actually caught it in the moment saying, something is wrong here. Something is wrong here. Something is wrong here. And it's actually identity of like really identifying as the person you are who has the thing. And when you're creating what you want, you're not going and chasing something, chasing an object. You're creating the version of you and aligning with the version of you that already has the thing that you want.
100%. You know, I have so many clients. A big part of them is like, I am the person who's constantly trying to lose the last 10 pounds. And they go on and on about like, oh, I've never been able to lose it. And I've tried this and that. And they have a huge story and a huge identity around this struggle instead of creating the identity of I am a fit, fabulous, you know, woman in her 50s or whatever the new identity is, and then really clarifying that identity. And is that what you're saying, Kit, that you've had to do recently? Has been like, okay, no, who's fit, Kit?
It was my belly. I had so much energy towards disliking my belly, making jokes about it, creating a new identity to be acceptable with the disappointment of not being able to have the body I wanted, the dad bod, the chub, you know, all of that. The sharing memes about quitting the gym, sharing memes about quitting your diet, really having this whole identity around the chubby ginger, you know?
Right.
And so when my hand caught my side and I'm like, whoa, there's less fat there. I didn't know what to do with myself. My identity almost was like, we got to get it back. And it was the first time, you know, you know me for a long time that I've had this journey of like 4 weeks in, gung ho, and then I quit.
Yeah.
This moment happened exactly at 4 weeks. And I realized that I always sabotaged my success at 4 weeks because it didn't align with the identity that I had created for myself. I had to shed the identity of being the chubby ginger.
Chubby, funny, goofy dad. So do you feel like you have to let that die in order to evolve into the Ken doll version of you? Or what? Tell me, what is the next version of you? What if chubby, funny, whoops, I forgot to go to the gym again, funny guy is gone? Who's coming up? Tell me about this guy.
I think I actually had to discipline it a little bit. Like parent that part of me that was not mature enough to evolve out of making myself a joke. Like, yeah, you're not doing that anymore. That's not what you want, and that's not who you are. And then when I let go of that being who I was, I actually was really surprised. I had a friend who would send me all these I quit the gym memes, and all of a sudden one day they weren't funny. And then a moment I realized that I was needed to shift my identity. I shifted my identity. I finally actually saw physical results, like photographic results. It was like, boom, instant change. And I realized that so much in our life is created around our identity.
100%. And I just want to ask Rosie sitting here and nodding, what would you want from a partner when you're doing this kind of identity shift? Because sometimes a partner can feel a little threatened by an identity shift, especially if they're the ones sending you the memes about quitting the gym, right? And I know that wasn't Rosie. I think Rosie is probably part of the catalyst for you changing, but what is a good way to support someone who's going through an identity shift like this? Hey dude, if you are enjoying this episode and you have a friend that you think might also benefit from this information, please share it with them. That helps my podcast so much, and it's going to help your friend. Share the love. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I love that you asked that, Una, because as you know, we've been together for 10 years and Kit has had many identity shifts in those 10 years. We got married as women.
So when you called me a Ken doll, you were way spot on.
Yeah. So supporting somebody through an identity shift, especially your partner, that's an interesting one. I think that when you sign up for a partnership, when you sign up for a long-term partnership with somebody, you have to consent to a certain amount of identity shifts that are going to come along with that. And if you don't consent to that, it's going to be very uncomfortable for you because inevitably we all change. Growth and evolution, and if you can't grow together and evolve together as a couple, then you might not make it as a couple. But I think that when your partner is going through an identity shift, I think the best thing you can do is actually support yourself in your own identity, because that way, if I feel I am supporting myself and all of my needs are met in that way, I'm open to supporting whatever is going on with kids. So I've had my own identity shift as well. And that's been pretty fun too. Mm-hmm. I never saw myself as even wanting to lift weights or go to the gym. I was always like a yoga person, a running person, little skinny fit person. I would get into a fitness phase. That would be my go-to. And all of a sudden this year, I just decided I want to be strong instead. And I want to try this on and see how it fits. And I realized that I had actually gotten into an identity of mom bod. And so we both had this identity wake up call in the last few days without talking about it, without realizing that we both had been falling into this trap of mom bod, dad bod, of kind of, this is my life now. I guess I just have a mom bod and that's okay. And all of a sudden waking up and realizing, hey, I'm only 38. Life isn't over just because I have a child. I can have a hot bod. I can have a bod I've never had before. And now all of a sudden I do. I can do push-ups without my knees on the floor. And that's a whole new thing for me too. And it feels really, really fun. You got to find ways where, change might be scary and it might be uncomfortable, but it can also be really fun.
And grow and evolve together. So, I mean, I love that we got on this right away. You guys are amazing. And I want to talk more about physical fitness later, but I want to ask you about some woo-woo shit right off the bat. Yeah. So when you go to your site, which everyone listening needs to go to this site because it is amazing. You see Kit and Rosie there in like unicorn hats. Anyway, I'm not even going to try and describe it. You just have to experience it. But it says that you believe in doing the magic first. So what does that mean? Doing the magic first?
Well, really, it does tie into the identity shift. Mm-hmm. It's you align your energy with what you want first. You become the thing internally of what you want. And then it's so much easier to go after what you want.
Right. Instead of going after the to-do list and the time blocking and the do, if I do all of these things, then I will become something magical. I will create a magical life. It's like exactly like you said, Una, no, create it from the inside first by tapping into that version of yourself and the vision of that. That's doing the magic first. It's meditating, it's visualizing, it's calling in assistance from the woo-woo realms. And really seeing that it's possible and believing that it's possible, and then watching your life change as a result of that.
So can you tell me more specifically, like if I was to come into this as a total skeptic, I would be like, why? Why does my life change? So I sit there and I meditate and I'm like, I'm skinny and I'm a bazillionaire and I'm on the cover of Forbes. Like, so, and I'm really picturing it or whatever. I mean, and then what happens? How does it work?
I think, you know what? You did this Apple thing the other day.
Okay.
The Apple thing.
Okay.
This is good.
Everybody watching, hold out both of your hands.
Or just listening, just hold out your hands.
If you're listening, hold out both your hands.
Okay.
And in your right hand, look at it and imagine an apple.
Mm-hmm.
And say, apple, 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 and just imagine it. And really see that apple starting to fill in. You didn't say apple.
I'm appling so hard in my head. I have such an apple in my hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clear the screen.
That's just the beginning of manifestation right there, is the vibrational energy of it coming into form. Takes a lot longer before the apple appears. We're not going to do that here because we don't have that much time. Now, clear the screen, clear my hands, clear the
yes.
Shake it off. Now look at your right hand.
Mm-hmm.
And say, no apple, no apple, no apple, no apple, no apple, no apple, no apple.
Okay, no apple, no apple. Yep.
That was 2 times.
No apple. I think you're underestimating my power here, Kit.
Okay. Now, what do you feel in your hands?
Like 99% of people feel the apple, even though they're looking at their hand and saying, no apple, no apple, no apple.
You're watching at home and you still felt an apple in your hand, in your right hand. You still felt that presence there, that vibrational presence. Basically, your brain does not know no. Your brain does not know, like, I'm not fat. I'm not lazy. I'm not poor.
Right. So if you're sitting there visualizing, I'm on the cover of Forbes magazine and I have a beach house and for 5 minutes a day. And then for the rest of the thousands of minutes in a day, you're thinking, oh, I never have any money. Oh, my bills are always late. Oh, there's another freaking bill in the mail. Oh, I'm so fat when I get on the scale. And these are the things that you're thinking constantly. Then that's the no apple, right? And then you sit there for 5 minutes and meditate and think, I'm so skinny, I'm so healthy, abundance flows to me and through me. That's why most manifestation and meditations don't work for people, is because they're not thinking about the rest of the time and what's going on in their subconscious mind. So what we help people do is become aware of their unconscious thoughts and beliefs that they didn't even know were there. Find them, identify them, examine them, love them, integrate them, heal them, whatever they need to do, so that out of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you're always either thinking in the right direction of what you want, or you're at least aware that you're thinking thoughts that you don't want. Whereas previously you were unaware that you were really thinking those thoughts. You didn't know you didn't know you were thinking them. And when you start to do that, when you really start to rewire your brain from that unconscious level, and this goes back to like childhood stuff, like how many beliefs do we carry from our childhood that are still really unconsciously repeating inside our heads? What are some of those beliefs? Like money doesn't grow on trees, or things you might find yourself repeating to your own children, things like that. Money's the root of all evil. And I'm just using money as an example, but we have just as many of them for food and weight, or for any subject matter, that are just ingrained. They're just in our DNA. So doing the magic, we make doing the hard work of examining your unconscious thoughts magical. We make it fun, and we make it silly, and we make it joyful. And so people can actually do this type of deep kind of coaching psychological work without feeling like it's a slog and it's difficult.
Yeah. And I think the biggest piece in this is the identity. Is that, like, imagine a whiteboard and you've got all this no apple energy on it. Like, oh, poor, like scared. Oh, he always leaves me, or I'm so unattractive, whatever it is, all written on the whiteboard. Right. And then you try to put affirmations over it. Like, I'm going to be on the cover of Forbes, or like, I've got a 6-pack. If you don't take the time to absolutely clear yourself to the 0 point, to where your identity is completely gone, then it's just scrambled messages to the universe. So what we teach is meditation. We teach a lot of meditation and a lot about how to get rid of that part of your brain that is programmed, how to completely let go. And if you do not get to the let go space, it's just a scrambled message, and it creates a lot of tension and a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. We know through studying meditation and stuff that it's getting rid of that part of your brain, that monkey mind. That's how you actually access the bigger part of you.
This podcast is made possible by Fit Feels Good, my online fitness and nutrition company. Here's what we do.
I have so many incredible benefits from the MFA program. It literally changed my life. I have the book, Healthy AF. I'm absolutely in love with my life now. I find that the healthy habits that I built are amazing to go back to. The benefits that you're going to see as a woman in your 40s plus are things you could have never imagined. The key, which I know Una talks about over and over again, is loving your body now, not what you're envisioning it to be.
I'm wondering, on your site, you say you need to rewire your brain and heart to receive in order to change your life. Is that what you're talking about right now?
100%. If your identity is, I'm only worthy if I'm taking care of other people, what are you going to receive?
A whole bunch of fucking people to take care of.
Yes, that's it. Now,
Yes.
if that is your identity and that's what's running on a loop because it's what you've known your entire life, and then you go, I'm worthy of a man to take care of me. It's just going to get scrambled. That's when you like kind of get something and then you don't, kind of get something and you don't.
Right.
So you got to have that space where you really let go of what's holding you back.
On your site, it says that you deal with spiritual and creative entrepreneurs, I think.
Well, typically the people that we work with are really, really powerful women who have to do it all.
Mm.
Who find themselves in a point in life where they are burnt out because they have put everything else before what they truly want, whether it's their career, their business. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. Like you said, a lot of them are in the healing industries, or their relationships, their children, even their friends, So what ends up happening is we have these, very, very powerful women, creators, brilliant visionary people, and they have created a lot for themselves, and they're like at this place where like, holy crap, I don't even know what I want anymore. I don't even know who I am anymore. So they find themselves in this kind of codependent place in life without realizing that that's what they've done.
What do you want? I just want my kids to be happy. They think that their worth comes from lighting themselves on fire to keep others warm.
And it's interesting that, when we first started out, that wasn't really our niche necessarily. But we find that the people who have the most success in working with us are the people who we have helped unwind these patterns. And we've seen the biggest transformations with these people specifically. And so this has become our niche. And it also happens that it is the lesson that was the hardest for the two of us to learn as well. And that's what they say in the world of helping people is like, help people with the lesson that was the hardest for you to learn. And that's what we end up doing.
And is that specifically self-worth? Am I getting that there?
I would say that's a huge piece. Yeah.
And when you can access the self-love and the self-worth, then all of your other priorities fall into place. The rest of your life just organizes itself. And then that's when you can start to step into more of the miracle creation stuff, because that's when it gets really fun.
But you can't get there until you love yourself. And because I noticed that was a huge theme in researching you guys. So for example, this is a review that I found. I don't know if you guys are aware this review is out there on the internet. It says, I used to be depressed, unmotivated, anxious all the time. Now I'm a beam of light, a healer, a coach, a goddess, and a teacher. I'm happy. I'm joyful. I see the beauty in everything. I am madly in love with myself. And I was like, whoa, that is quite the transformation. The running theme is self-love. And I want all listeners to know that if you go to the Little Volcano on Etsy, you can purchase an I Love Myself bomber jacket. That is what Kit was wearing when I picked him up and he came to visit my house. And it's pictures of Kit all over it, or in your case would be pictures of yourself. And it says, I love myself all over them. And you've got sweaters, you've got tote bags, you've got throw pillows, all with pictures of yourself. And this is, I love you myself.
A gift to the world.
Can I share one of my favorite client transformations of how self-love actually transformed his whole life?
Yes.
Okay. So I have this dear client. She's okay if I share her name, Stephanie. And Stephanie definitely lived for her children, lived for her partner, lived for everyone else. She's a teacher. She's amazing. Love her. And lived for the love of everyone else as well. And when she found us, she was riddled with anxiety and fear because her worth depended on what other people thought of her and how happy she made everybody else. And so she went through one of our programs, completely changed her life, and finally began to get to know herself a little bit. And she accredits all of it to self-love. So she's got this jacket and she calls it her bullshit detector. And she said that she wanted to wear it every day until she absolutely knew it was real.
It's funny, Kit, you said you need I Love Myself jacket to me. And I don't know if I'd have the balls to wear it. I think that's
why you wear it.
That's why you wear it. Exactly. That's the whole point.
I know. It is genius. And I will say that is, I actually made a list of times here that Kit has called me on my bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a bit because I know Kit's like, oh my God, I'm so excited. But I just want to go over what we've kind of learned so far. We talk about first step, self-love. If you don't think that you are worthy, you're not going to receive shit. Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Self-love.
Or you will receive shit.
Or you will receive shit. You will receive a big stinking pile of shit because you think that's what you deserve. Okay. So then once you've got the self-love, then you are in a position to start receiving. And that's when you create the miracles. And the miracle creation is in the dreaming, the manifesting, the changing of your thoughts so that you become the identity of the person who receives these things. Am I getting it right?
No. So, well, kind of.
That's why you're here.
So when you get the self-love, great, then your limiting thoughts and beliefs, you can start to get those out of the way. You can start to clear those and reprogram those and rewire those. That's when you start inviting in manifestation energy. That's when you start manifesting the amazing things in your life. Your situations start to change, your relationships start to change, your finances start to change, your living environment starts to change. That's all amazing, but that's not miraculous. That's cool. That's great. It's really wonderful, but the miracle energy comes later. That comes, or it can come simultaneously, really. But the miracle energy comes with the next little point that we'll make, which is releasing all identity, releasing all sense of self, becoming no one, nothing, no place, no time. And that's when we go to Disneyland. Can we talk about that yet?
Yes, I'm excited.
Is there more until we talk about Disneyland? Because we just came here to talk about Disneyland.
No, actually, before we get to Disneyland, I would love it if you would give a little bit about how you guys have made this your life. Because when I was creeping on the internet right now, like, I found a Huffington Post article that said, Kit and Rose Volcano lead yoga retreats at the foot of active volcanoes where the lava meets the sea. And I was like, what? I didn't know you did that. I think you guys had a hair salon and then a yoga studio in Scotland. And apparently you've run these lava retreats and now manifestation. Like, can you tell me a little bit about how you guys have created your life?
We also made up our own names.
Yeah,
right.
So,
because you could do whatever you want.
You can do it. You can make your life whatever you want. This is long before we found coaching, but we got married and we thought, we were both women at the time, whose name should we take? Our names are not going to sound well hyphenated. It would have been Wobble Swartz or Swartz Wobble.
Oh.
And that does not work.
I like Volcano.
So we
better.
felt, so let's make up a new name. And Kit goes, what should it be? And he happens to be sitting under a bookshelf in our house that had a little build your own volcano kit. It was just a cool box that I found at a thrift store. And I said, well, how about volcano? And he's like,
we go, okay,
I like it. So then we go off to yoga teacher training together right after we get married. And we are going by the last name Volcano. So everybody knows us as the Volcanoes for this whole month. And it's like we got to escape our life in Chicago, live in San Francisco for a month, and everybody just knew us as the Volcanoes. So by the time we left yoga teacher training, we had the name for our first business, which is still the current name of our business, which is the Little Volcano. And it started as a yoga leggings company. Oh. We started making artist-designed leggings that were made, manufactured, produced. All the fabric, the printing, the sewing, everything was done in Chicago. And that was very, 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 very expensive. And no one wanted to pay money for leggings like that at the time. So it was a terrible business investment. But the leggings were super cute. They kind of look like this, actually. Which
I love. Yeah. Note to listeners, Rosie is wearing a spectacular jumpsuit right now. It's worth going to find the YouTube for this right now. Go on, Rosie.
Yeah. So then after yoga teacher training, we decide, and the leggings were like, that's not working. Let's open a yoga studio. So we opened a yoga studio in Asheville, North Carolina. We moved from Chicago to Asheville. We ran the yoga studio, but we still hadn't gotten coaching yet. And so we had massive worthiness issues that were running behind the scenes, making us think that we needed to undercharge for all of our yoga. So we were trying to charge $10 for a yoga class when everyone else in town was charging $20. And that quickly failed as well. And we got to a point where we were having candlelight yoga in the middle of the day because our power got shut off.
Ooh.
And we said, this isn't working either. I wonder why. Oh, it's because we're sitting here thinking, I am abundant. I am abundant. I am abundant for 5 minutes a day. When the rest of the day
we're going, oh shit, how are we going to pay rent? Oh shit, what are we going to do? Oh
yeah. And we didn't know we were thinking these things. They were all in our unconscious minds. And so finally we find Abraham Hicks, Law of Attraction, and we start listening to those videos every single day. And it completely transformed our lives. Within weeks, we went from being in the red in our yoga studio to being in the black, just from a simple mindset shift of we're not allowing any more of these thoughts into our reality.
It wasn't a simple mindset shift. It was the whole rewiring of our identity.
Right, it was simple, but it wasn't easy.
It was a hog wild, all in commitment because we had nothing left to lose.
We had nothing left to lose. We were on the verge of getting a divorce.
Well, if joy is the solution out of this shit, I guess we're going to have to do that.
It was joy. And it was, the other concept is stop thinking about what you don't want. Start thinking about what you do want. What do I really want? What did I really want? I started thinking, I've always wanted to travel. I really want to see Scotland. I keep thinking about Scotland and travel. Within a couple weeks, a famous yoga teacher from Scotland calls us and says, hey, do you want to move?
It was my Instagram yoga crush.
Mm-hmm. He said, do you want to move to Scotland for 6 months, live in my house, teach in my yoga studio while I go on tour? And we said, when do you want us there? Because we were done living in Asheville, North Carolina. We were done running a failing yoga studio. So, but the funny thing is, our yoga studio actually started making money at that same time too, because of our mindset shift. But we were already decided that we were done with it. So we got rid of the studio, moved to Scotland for 6 months. And along the way, we were teaching retreats all over the world in beautiful places like the Azores Islands, the Canary Islands. We love to go to where the volcanoes are and actually have a retreat in a beautiful place by a volcano, you know, black volcanic beaches and hot springs by the ocean and things like that. It's very, very fun. And after we were done with Scotland, we moved to California where Kit's family lives. And we decided to finally get some coaching because we literally had nothing. We had no car, no house, no mattress, no fork, no spoon. We had our dogs and some clothes, and that was it.
We basically had sold everything to go to Scotland, and we had a chance to start over. And when we started over and we moved from Chicago to Asheville, we started over on this premise that we didn't need a lot of money to be happy. We could live a simple life of service. And guess what we attracted? A yoga studio that was the only people who were doing yoga were the work traders. And we didn't need a lot of money to be happy. That was not true. We didn't even have enough money to eat. So when we had nothing left, we had sold all of our stuff, gone to Scotland, we come back to the States, we have a blank slate. Mm-hmm. And we almost moved to Sacramento, California. And we were there for a couple weeks. And a couple weeks in, I said to Rosie, oh my God, we moved here based on the fact that it was the affordable part of California. Right. But we got this far and went to Scotland based on the belief that we can have what we want, that we can build whatever we want. So where do we really want to be? Because we weren't happy there. So where do we really want to be? And we're like, San Diego, San Diego. And we basically
we photoshopped our income to get an apartment. And then we became the people who could afford that house by just putting ourselves out there, doing whatever it took to make it happen. And we hired a coach, and that coach was there to help us see our thoughts, see the beliefs, unwind them, reprogram them, rewire them. That's where we learned coaching. And within a few months, we had launched our own coaching business because we realized we'd already been coaches for a long time. We just weren't charging for it. And within the first year, we went from 0 to making 6 figures in 1 month.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was all through the miracle creation part that we're about to get to.
We also went from homeless, living out of a rental van, to buying $1 million house within a couple of years.
Right. So yeah, it just kept going and going from there. And, you know, since then we have had a mostly upward trajectory, and we've had a couple ups and downs over the last year, like we all have, I think, over the last few years. But those are all just part of the journey, all part of the growth process, right?
Hey, my friend, could you do me a quick favor? Could you subscribe and leave a review for this podcast? It's a small thing. You could do it in line while waiting at the coffee shop. But listen, that support makes all the difference for new podcasts like this one. It would absolutely make my day to see your review. Thanks, dude. Oh, and back to the podcast. For those that are listening and they're hearing, okay, I need to manage my thoughts and stay on a positive trajectory. What do you do when you get those downward parts? I was going to ask you, how do you deal with haters? Because when I'm creeping you, and this is amazing, actually, this is a great moment. This is actually, I'll put this into one of the moments that Kit gave me a mindset adjustment. So I was Googling you. One of the things that came up was a really nasty thread on Reddit. And by the way, I have a really nasty thread on Reddit about me too. Oh, like Reddit is vicious. Anyway, so I immediately texted Kit. I was like, Kit, oh my God, there's this bad thing about you on Reddit. And he was like, oh, we've made it. I was like, oh, wow, that wouldn't have been my reaction. You guys are amazing. So how do you deal with, you know, the downtimes, the haters, and keep this incredible mindset that you have so carefully cultivated?
I have one quote real quick I want to say before you answer.
Oh, yeah.
RuPaul has a really great quote about this, about haters. RuPaul says, honey, if they ain't paying your bills, pay them no mind.
Nope.
They're not paying our bills. So, like, we don't have time for that. I'll let you say what you want to say.
I think that's better than what I was going to say.
So when times have not been great, regardless of haters, when times have not been great, how do you flex this mental fortitude, this mindset that you've cultivated?
Well, it's a double-edged sword because in this work, you realize that everything is a reflection of your consciousness and your beliefs.
You create everything.
You literally create everything. But how annoying is that when you're creating something that you don't want?
And it feels like things are just happening to you. We had one of those years last year where a lot of things were happening outside of our control. They were happening with other people in our lives. Like my dad almost died. My mom almost died. We had a bunch of our house got flooded. A bunch of things happened where it's like, okay, how am I creating this? There's a big part of you that wants to go, why is this happening to me? But that's really just disempowering. It just gets you deeper into the hole of feeling powerful.
Oh, but okay, Rosie, your dad was dying. So was it helpful for you to adjust your mindset to think, I created this?
Well, this is a crazy, like, putting the work into action in real time moment. So the nurses, doctors, everyone was very convinced my dad was going to die within a few days. He was intubated. He had COVID pneumonia. His lungs were full of scar tissue, pulmonary fibrosis. They said, even if he does make it off the tubes, he's not going to ever be able to breathe on his own again. So he's basically going to be, attached to a breathing machine for the rest of his life, essentially a vegetable, if he does survive, which he probably won't. So, I actually didn't know that when I made the choice to fly out there to see him, and he's on the East Coast, we're on the West Coast. I knew he was doing worse and that they were considering intubating him. I get a plane ticket for that night. And while I'm in the airport on a layover, I was the last person that he was able to talk to before they intubated him, because it was only 11 p.m. our time, but it was 1 a.m. his time. And so nobody else on the East Coast was awake for that. But so I was the last person to hear my dad's voice. And I just said, oh my goodness, this might be the last time I ever talk to my dad. What do you say in a moment like that? You say, I love you. That's all you can say. And I was there a few hours later. The doctors are trying to basically tell us he's not going to make it. And for a moment I was convinced, and I felt powerless. And I felt like I'm not ready to lose my dad. And this is horrible. And what am I going to do with my mom? My mom needs a lot of help. This is just crazy. I can't believe this is happening. It feels so sudden. And within a few hours, I was able to sit and shift and think, okay, well, if I did create this, if I did play a role in this, just through my beliefs, just through affirming the belief of this doctor and agreeing with him in believing that my dad's not going to make it, what can I do right now to shift that? I can believe that there's a possibility that he won't die. And so I start thinking, okay, well, it feels better to believe that there's at least a chance he's not going to die. That feels better. I'm going to choose that thought instead, because there is a grain of truth there. There's a possibility he might not die, even though all these doctors are telling us it's for sure a certainty. So I think, okay, there's a possibility he might not die. Okay, what would I do if I believed truly that there's a possibility my dad could live? Not just not die, but what if there's a possibility he could actually live? What if there's a possibility that he could actually breathe on his own again? What if there was a possibility that he could be with his grandchildren and go home again? Oh my gosh, that feels so much better. Okay, I'm going to keep thinking that and believing that. And when you do that, you start to, you can even listening to myself tell this story, I can feel my body chemistry changing. I can feel it's easier to breathe away. It's easier, like my prefrontal cortex comes back online. I can make rational decisions again with my brain. My brain is back online. Whereas in the other state, you're in total fight or flight. So if you bring your nervous system into a more regulated state, just by changing the thoughts that you're thinking, all of a sudden things become available to you that weren't there before. So I realized, oh, right, my best friend is a hospitalist who works on a COVID unit. I'm going to call her and ask what her opinion is. So of course I call her, and she happens to be available, which is very rare. And she says, no. Very rare. She's up and up on all of the latest research with COVID at this time. This was a year and a half ago. So there were still a lot of things that were unknown. There still now are a lot of things that are unknown about it. But she knew, for instance, that there were quite a few studies out there that showed that many COVID pneumonia patients get pulmonary fibrosis that completely resolves itself, which normally it does not. Normally, when you get scar tissue like that in your lungs, ground glass texture, it does not resolve itself. There's no possibility that it could do that. But she knew based on the studies that she had been reading, that many of these patients were making full recoveries as long as they just had a little bit more time on the breathing machine, being intubated, essentially. Normally, they don't want to give it more than 2 weeks. She said, give him more time. Just give him more time. She was checking in. So I opened myself up to the possibility that there was another solution out there, and it came within minutes. So I said, okay, we're just going to give him more time. Sure enough, he just needed more time. He had 3 weeks. And then when he came out of that, when he was detubated or whatever, they take the tubes out and he wakes up, he can breathe on his own. The scar tissue had resolved itself. It was a total miracle. And it was, I know that a lot of it had to do with the fact that I went from believing he was going to die, signing off on the DNR, do not resuscitate. If anything happens to him, don't try to bring him back to life. Initially, we said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. We changed our minds, my mom and I. We changed our beliefs. And with both of us behind that, I know that's the reason why he's still alive today. Otherwise, we would have taken him off. He would have died and we would have said goodbye to him, which, that would have been its own journey as well. But I am very grateful that I still have my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so having the belief that he could survive, it put you in a frame of mind that allowed you to be more resourceful, start thinking of other solutions. And that's what led to the fact that he's here today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here's how you really know you believe something positive. Do you feel good?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying, I'm believing, but you feel like fucking garbage.
You're all tense about it.
And it's like I said, the prefrontal cortex, you can tell when you're in fight or flight. You don't have the ability to make rational decisions in that moment, right? You're making, everything is from fear. When you can shift out of that, shift back into that belief, that possibility, that hope, you feel your nervous system change. You feel everything start to regulate. And then, oh, wow, you can actually think again.
I have a memory of being on a roller coaster and chanting Happy, Healthy Tom, which is your dad's name. So let's talk about Manifestation Disney, which is...
Oh, finally.
Yeah. So can you please tell us the origins of Manifestation Disney? How did you guys come up with this idea?
We already loved Disneyland. We went one time in the beginning of our relationship. After we had run a half marathon, we went to Disneyland the day after. We were visiting Kit's family in San Diego, and we had the most magical time. And I never thought I was a Disneyland person before that. I thought Disneyland is not for adults because I had never been. And then we went and it was amazing. So when we moved to California, we thought, oh, goody, we're close to Disneyland. This is fun. So we would go as often as we could afford to at the time. And as we were first starting our coaching business. And one time we're on our way to Disneyland and we happened to be reading a book called The Power of Eight by Lynn McTaggart. I was reading it out loud to Kit in the car as he was driving because I'm a huge nerd. I'm like, listen to this. This is amazing. So she studies the power of prayer or group meditation, meditating for a specific intention, AKA prayer, and really measuring the results.
And she was actually a skeptic journalist who went in to prove that this was hogwash. She started to see that this is real.
So she starts studying it. She starts experimenting. She starts researching and really just tracking all of the intentions that these people are putting out there and seeing these big results that seem very miraculous. She's like, wow, okay. So about how the transformational experience is created when the mind develops a strong expectation of change.
Okay.
So for instance, if you're Catholic, you go into a Catholic church asking God to create something in your life, right? You want something to change. You want something to be different. And you believe that it's possible because as a Catholic, you see the signs around you. You see the stained glass and the priest in the outfit and the incense and the chanting and the songs, and everything is created to give you an expectation that God is real and that Jesus can heal and that all of this stuff is real, right? So you go into this atmosphere where you believe that it's possible, and then it becomes more possible because you believe it's possible. Whereas if you're just walking down the street, you go into 7-Eleven and you think, oh yeah, I hope my dad survives being intubated, praying to the Gatorade gods, like the belief is not there. Right. You're just sitting in 7-Eleven, right? So that's what she was essentially saying, is that when you go somewhere and you have the belief that things can happen, that's what creates the right environment to create these miracles. And we're on our way to Disneyland at the time, and I'm reading this and I say, Kit, well, what else is Disneyland but a place where you're meant to believe that magic is real? And
so, yeah, in indigenous ceremonies, the more lights and pageantry and music and smoke and mirrors, she saw the more likelihood that miracles would happen, that big healing miracles would happen for people. And so she's reading this to me and I say, well, what is Disneyland but lights and pageantry and the expectation of magic, the expectation that something amazing is going to happen. You're going to have the best day. So we decided to do an experiment as we were, flooded with all these chemicals of excitement and our hair was raising on its ends. We were just like, whoa, I think we're onto something big here. So we know that through losing yourself completely, losing your worries of the dog, losing the identity of a fat dad, losing the identity of being poor, that you have access to create a completely different reality for yourself.
So no one, nothing, no place, no time.
You have access to, rapid change. You have access to insight. You have access to energy. So we know that. And now she's reading to me, the more lights and pageantry and music and expectation of change, the more magic is going to happen. So we decide if we go to Disneyland expecting a miracle to happen and we go on a ride, and when we lose ourselves, when we drop on that ride and we lose worries about our cats, worries about our bills.
You can't be thinking about that stuff when you're on a ride at Disneyland. That's a perfect place to lose your sense of self in that moment, especially on the rides that have kind of the bigger, more dramatic body sensations associated with them.
So we decide if when we lose ourselves and we enter that state of pure joy, pure bliss, pure elation, are we actually connected to the universe? And in that moment when we're connected to the universe, if we send out a vision of what we want to the universe, will it happen? So we experiment. We call in the four directions and Simba and Elsa in the north, and we get into state and we dance and we chant and we sing and we create a chant for what we want. And then we get on the ride and we say we are getting a client. As soon as we get off the ride, our phone dings, we got a client. We're like, oh my God, that was cool.
Yeah.
Then we do it again. Let's get our client a client. Our phone dings, we go on the ride, we do the thing, our phone dings, and our client's like, oh my God, I got a client. So we had an event 6 weeks later. And one of the people who worked for us, her brother had a brain tumor, and we were like, well, let's do this for him. So she had lost
just doing these like money miracles. Those are great, but like, let's see what happens when we set the intention for somebody who needs a miraculous healing.
It's called a generous miracle for someone else. Mm-hmm. So she had lost her mother to cancer, and now it's just her brother, and her dad, and she's devastated. Mm-hmm. And we're like, we are creating a miracle for your brother. And we know that the more expectation of magic and change, the more lights and pageantry and belief in magic, that the stronger you are to creating a miracle. So we go all in. We're like, this is happening. This works. Believe in it. And we're like, oh, I really hope this works.
Yes. This is more ballsy than wearing the I Love Myself jacket even. Like, this is I'm shitting myself for you here a bit, to be honest.
This is ballsy.
Yeah, ballsy.
So we take 16 people on the roller coaster and we actually fit it in perfectly on the roller coaster. Mm-hmm. And we're happy, healthy, healed, happy, healthy, healed, happy, healthy, healed. He's just, happy, healthy, healed. Nothing better than that. 6 weeks later, the brain scans show up. His tumor has calcified and he's got a girlfriend.
Oh. Yeah. So we said, oh, well, that's cool.
We're like,
let's try it again.
We have to do this again.
And so that was April of 2018. And we have now done something similar to that, Manifestation Disney, probably a couple dozen times since then. And almost every single major miracle that we can track has happened. Like there was a little boy who was 4 who needed a heart transplant. He had been waiting for 6 months. It's very unlikely for kids that young to ever get an organ transplant because another young kid that age has to die and be healthy enough, right? And so it was not looking good for this kid. And it was
height of COVID time. So his mother was with him in the hospital and his father was 2 hours away and he couldn't come visit him in the hospital. And it was, imagine that, like just your 4-year-old boy in the hospital.
So we are
with a heart pumping outside of his body, a Berlin heart.
Yeah.
So we had a friend, Kelly. She was at the event and she's our jingle master. She's hilarious. She's so musically talented. We had her create the chant. And the chant was, the little boy's name was actually Kit. So the chant was, a heart that beats and Kit is complete. A heart that beats and Kit is complete. And we all say it and we get into state because we basically been training them for 4 days how to get into state, how to access this energy. And then we send it out into the universe. And
exactly 1 week later to the day, it was the morning of my birthday, I wake up to a text message saying that previous night, that little boy had gotten his heart transplant. And not only that, the girl that we had picked to do the jingle for us, because she's a great musician and she's great at jingles, we didn't know this at the time when we called her up and said, hey, Kelly, can you make this jingle for us? It also happened to be her brother's birthday that day, on the day of my birthday, and her brother had passed away because he had a heart condition and he was waiting for a transplant that he never received. So it was this very synchronistic, magical, miraculous moment, and we've had dozens and dozens of them since then, because when we go to Disneyland, we make it a full day thing. We bring a huge group of people. We do miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. I mean, we'll just go all day, right? And when we run out, we'll start asking strangers if they need a miracle. And so, we don't really hear updates about the ones for the strangers, but usually for the people who are there with us, they will update us later on. And they're almost always the things that we are intending to happen. They come true. And it's,
We've got a list. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, stage 4 lung cancer. One of my most favorite ones was, chronic pain healed instantly. But one of my most favorite ones recently happened. It was the participant there. Her sister was a hoarder, and she had started hoarding when she lost her child. She couldn't let go of anything. And it was getting so bad that she had storage sheds and she couldn't live in her house. And we made a miracle coaster wish for her to heal whatever was going on and start releasing her stuff. Now, that one was a little bit of a stretch for me to believe, because I was like, how is this going to happen?
This was harder for you to believe than the brain tumor?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We've done these physical healing things like over and over and over again. Like, okay, this is the problem. This is the solution. With a hoarder, it's like,
right.
How are we going to solve? This is the problem. Obviously, this boy needs a heart. He gets a heart. Yeah. But you don't get to you don't get to know all the other magic that gets included with it. Yeah. So this is an emotional thing. Like, how is this going to heal? How is this going to change? Well, within a few weeks, guess what had happened? There's a million ways that this could resolve itself.
You'll never guess.
But you'll never guess. There was a high-speed chase that ended at the storage shed facility, crashing only into her storage shed. And when she saw her storage shed, she had like a wake-up call and started to the process of releasing all of her stuff, willingly let go of everything in the shed and started cleaning up her own home.
Wow. Okay, guys. So now when Rosie, when you told the story about your positive thoughts and feelings about your dad's healing, created this resourceful mindset that allowed you to look into these things, and then that kind of helped heal your dad. That makes sense to me, but I don't understand. Maybe you guys don't understand how you guys, maybe not. Like, so how could what you guys are putting out there, even if it's super powerful at Disneyland, how can that bring a heart to a 4-year-old? How can that heal a brain tumor? Do you have an explanation for that? Or are you like, no, this is not for me to know?
I can't begin to describe how it all works because it's not my area of expertise. It's just something I'm fascinated with, and I read a lot about it. But, you can be thinking about somebody and sending them an energy, a thought form. Have you ever thought about somebody and then they called you a few minutes later?
Oh, yeah. Like that one day where we were at Disneyland and I thought, I'd love to get on more podcasts. And you literally text me right in that morning and said, come on my podcast. Does that happen to you often?
You know what? I used to, when I was early in my business, I used to have a thing where if I was launching, I would lie in bed. This is kind of embarrassing when I say this. You guys look at it. And I would imagine people in England who needed my help. And I would just send out I love you. I got you. And I would picture my specific friends in England. And I would just send them. I'd be like, if you're struggling with this, I got you. And I would move to Ireland, do this all around the globe, picturing people I knew in those areas and just sending them come to mama if you need to get fit. Like, I got you. And then I remember after doing that, I checked my phone and my friend from Ireland had just joined. And I was like, oh my God, that's so weird. That's my strongest example of that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't want to put you on the spot to be like, explain quantum physics, Rosie. Like, that's not exact. It's not at all what I mean. And in fact, I just wondered if you had sort of a theory. And most of the time when I ask people who are masters at this, they will say something to the effect of like, no, man, like, I don't know how it works. I just know it does. It's like, do you know how electricity works? No, but you use it all the time.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It's like you could try to understand it. You could try to scratch the surface of it. You could study quantum physics. You could read all the books, and there's still so much mystery behind it. And so we've just learned to embrace the mystery and embrace the faith that you have to have. That's a necessary part of it. And as people, or at least for me, like I grew up very, very Catholic, very Christian, and then became queer. And so I had this very like anti-faith, long phase in my life where that was like a trigger word. That was like automatically associated with like the wool's being pulled over your eyes, you're being manipulated. And so I had to undo my relationship with that word as well to lean into this stuff, because it's all the same stuff. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. This stuff happens across all cultures, across all religions. These types of things are happening all the time, and everybody's going to have a different explanation for it. But I think it's all happening for the same reasons. So the first time it happened, it was like, oh, that's cool. The second time it happened, I was like, oh, that's weird. Third time it happened, we're like, okay, we can't not do this now, because like, what if we really are having this impact and these people really are healing because of this crazy woo-woo stuff we're doing at Disneyland? That's insane. But if it's true, we can't not do it.
And you don't get nervous about promising someone that you can heal their brother's cancer.
We don't promise anybody anything. We explain it to people, you know, that it's like, no matter what the outcome is, we know that we're putting our belief and our faith behind the practice of what we're doing. For instance, I'll give you an example. Sometimes people will ask for a miracle for somebody whose highest and best outcome would actually be to transition, to pass away. Somebody who's at the end of their life and who actually continuing to live would be more painful for them. And so in those circumstances, you really have to look at what is the biggest miracle for that person in this moment. We don't promise anything, but we do say like, hey, let's hold the highest and best outcome for this person. And if it happens to be healing, then wonderful. Let's lean into that. Let's just look at what it would be like for them and envision them happy, healthy, healed, and them living an amazing life.
We also don't tell people that we're making a miracle for them. That's part of this. Yeah. Part of the secret is if we're making a miracle for somebody, you're not allowed to reach out and tell them what we did.
Well, I know that when I got to have this experience with you guys, we were working on Rosie's dad's healing, which at that time seemed very unlikely. And we were working on me getting a house, which I am standing in right now, talking to you guys. Yeah. So I've certainly had the experience of your amazing work, which is also, I want to say to anyone listening, regardless of whether you're buying the miracles thing or not, it is so freaking fun. Like, it is the most fun day you will ever have. And that in itself is kind of miraculous, which I think is cool.
Well, and it's part of the identity shift is letting go of the identity of being a skeptic, letting go of the identity that something magical and miraculous can't happen for you.
Good one.
That's a huge piece of the identity shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So given everything that you guys have shared with us about identity, about self-love, about creating miracles, what would you say to listeners right now who have goals that they are wanting to achieve, who are going through hard times and kind of trying to get the grit to persevere to achieve these goals? And what is the little special sauce of woo-woo shit that you would give them in order to make all of their dreams come true?
Give up.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to the show. Did you have anything you want?
I'm kind of kidding, but I'm not. Because sometimes holding, needing, wanting, chasing is no apple, no apple, no apple, no apple. It's literally like seeing the lack of what you actually are, seeing the lack of your power, seeing the lack of your ability to create, and needing your life to change so bad for you to be happy. Sometimes that's the worst thing that you can do to get what you want. And the best thing that you can do is allow yourself to be happy now. That is the biggest self-love nugget ever is if you can accept your past, accept your present, accept yourself now, and really decide, I am going to be happy no matter what. I am going to let myself be happy. That is self-love.
Yeah.
Giving yourself permission to be happy is the biggest gift of self-love that you can offer yourself. And so, and I know this goes along with everything that you teach, but sometimes that means like, I don't need this goal to happen for me to be happy. And then all of a sudden, when you're not in resistance, when you're not in striving, when you're not in lack, that's when you get the idea to call your friend. That's when you have the inspiration to do this thing with Manifestation Disney. That's when you go on a walk, take a shower, and answers start coming through.
Perfect. Where can people keep in touch with you guys?
You can follow us on Instagram at The Little Volcano or Rosie Volcano, Kit Volcano. Pretty easy to find. Don't go on Reddit. I highly recommend not going on Reddit. But our website is thelittlevolcano.com. And all of our events and upcoming things you can find out more about there.
You guys are incredible. I love being in the presence of your magic. And thank you so much for doing the show. All right, dude. What did you think of Kit and Rosie? I love that last part where they said that the most self-loving thing you can do is just allow yourself to be happy. Listen, it would make me so happy to hear what you thought of this episode. So send me a DM on Instagram. And while you're there, check out the Little Volcano account and see what Kit and Rosie are up to. Like, they often have free events and challenges that get rave reviews from people. And let's be honest, who couldn't use a bit more magic in their life? Until next week. Hey dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.